I can get this other camera to work here. Nope, that's not the one I wanted. There we go. All right. Hey, welcome, folks, to the stream. I'm Corey Hugert, proprietor of Crock of Time, which is a website where I log all of my ferments, and a Discord where we share our experiences and help each other out. So, before I get started making this, this is what we're making today, or rather for the next 3 days, roughly. Before we get started with that, I'm actually going to, well, I have a bit of a confession to make. I have started already, but don't worry, we're not going to miss anything. There is, I'll walk you through the whole thing. Stay tuned. But first, this has been going for about half an hour. I'll come back to this, but we are steaming our rice, and for my particular setup, since I have 2 of these, I need to take these and swap them after half an hour, which it has been. Okay, now that that's out of the way, we can let it continue doing its thing while we sort other stuff out. Okay, let's first, let's take ourselves back in here and have a seat while we talk about what we're doing. So, okay. We are making this. If you are joining the stream, you're probably already interested in this, and you might already know what it is. But just a quick, brief introduction. Koji, and this is grown on rice. Koji itself is a mold that we're going to grow on some rice. And that mold is responsible for a lot of things. A lot of things from Japanese culture that you may or may not be familiar with, such as sake or shochu. Miso, here's one from larder. We've got tamari and soy sauce. You might be more familiar with soy sauce. Here's one from the state of Ohio, sin soy. Good stuff. And here's one from my friends at Shared Culture. This is a tamari made with morel mushrooms. So, hi Elena. But we've got other stuff too. So we've got, the alcohol, we've got super savory stuff. We've also got rice vinegar, which kind of needs to go through the process of kojification first before it can become vinegar. Here is some homemade mirin that I made. Mirin is like a sweet cooking wine made with, made with koji. We've got some other things that you might not be as familiar with. So this is shio koji, but it has shiso, which is an herb blended in with it. And some other things that are just kind of off the wall, like some sort of sauce miso kind of thing made from ham. So lots of different and crazy things happening with this stuff. Even, by the way, most of the citric acid manufactured in the world is made by a variation of koji. A different kind than we're growing, but all the same. So you might be able to get koji from the store these days, if you're lucky. I happen to be lucky, but when I started doing this, I didn't have koji at the store. So I had to figure out how to make my own at home, and I had some help. So big shout out to Jeremy Mansky at Larder Delicatessen and Bakery in Cleveland, Ohio. pre-pandemic. This was roughly 2018, 2019. I attended a Koji class there after I had done a couple batches and I wasn't quite satisfied with what I was doing, and I decided to learn from a master, and it helped. So I'm hoping that I can pass a little bit of that on to you today, and then also in the upcoming stream on Saturday morning. So check, I believe I put that link in the description. If not, I'll update it. Check all the social media. I'll post it on the website too. So yeah, so this isn't going to be a perfectly optimal Koji growing setup. We're not going, crazy. We're trying to make do with some stuff we have, buying a thing or two here or there to make it more convenient. But that's the key for me anyways, convenience. So, I'll give more details as we go through. But I do want to talk about what we're actually doing today. So let's go over to the big screen. Basically what is happening today is we've got very few ingredients. We've got a kilogram of rice, dry weight, and we've got 10 kilograms of what is called Kojikin, or basically spores that have been dispersed in rice flour. So we'll talk about that once we get to it. I can show you, well, I'll show it to you when we get over there. But actually, let's go in there now because we're also going to talk about equipment. And we're not going to get into the incubator setup yet because you do need an incubator to grow the mold itself. But here's that Koji kin. So here is my own dispersed spores. I got the spores themselves from a website called Gem Cultures. That is one option. Here is another smaller amount of spores that I got from my friends in San Francisco, Shared Cultures. So give them a look up. They sell all sorts of great, interesting misos and shoyus, and also spores if you want to have a go at it yourself. And by the way, we're going to go over the dispersion process in a minute. But first, let's also talk about equipment. So we need a number of things other than the incubation chamber itself. Oops. So something that I find really important in pretty much everything I do is a kitchen scale. I think that before everything else, this should probably be your first purchase for doing experimental stuff in the kitchen, and I highly recommend if you don't have it. You could probably still do it without. It's just going to be, you're just going to eyeball stuff, and I feel like you don't get to the being able to eyeball stage until you know what those measurements are like, so keep that in mind. You're going to need some bowls, and probably a strainer as well. This is just the bowl from my rice cooker because I find it easy to wash the rice in there. You're going to need a steamer setup. We looked briefly at my steamer setup. This is a double layer bamboo steamer. I got it at the local Korean store. There's all sorts of different kinds of steamers, even stainless steel ones. I'm thinking about maybe getting one of those myself. You don't have to use a wok to put the steamer in. That's just what I've been doing, and I'm just kind of sticking to it. But I have used just a normal sort of stainless steel pot for that as well. The rice napkin. Let me actually jump over back to the camera. The rice napkin. So we're gonna take a closer look at this from before the stream started, but I'll just give you a sneak peek here. So that rice is covered, or wrapped in this nylon fabric. And before I discovered that, I was dealing with muslin, butter muslin, or cheesecloth. Highly do not recommend cheesecloth. It just sticks like crazy. So if you can find that rice napkin, is what I found it as online, or you can find it at a local Asian store, highly recommended. All right, back to this. Okay, so for the incubating the koji itself, I have this deep pan. I don't really know what it's actually called. I'm sorry. I'm sure it has a proper, some kind of proper name, but it's like this. It's like 2 inches deep, roughly, and I can give you a measurement. Actually, there we go. This is for, remember, I do a 1 kilogram batch of rice, which is like roughly 2 pounds. I don't know. Someone let me know. So this is roughly 18 by 13 inches, if that helps. But any kind of pan will work, even if they're not quite as deep, because 1 kilogram doesn't really get that far up, but it does help with how we're going to incubate it. So keep that in mind. That's what the rice is going in. While I'm there, I'm just gonna open the rest of this, right? Okay, so I happen to have this stuff. This is called Star San. It's already pre-mixed in this spray bottle, so it's just easy to use. You do not have to have this, and that's why I didn't list it on there, but I am going to use it right now, actually, while I'm thinking about it, to sterilize, and it should sit for about 10 minutes or so, to sterilize the pan, to sterilize the next thing, which is a rice paddle or a spoon of some kind. You just need something to spread the rice with. Set that there. Oh, here we go. That's where the fine mesh sieve is. A tea towel right here. So this is just a towel that will fit over top of this. Doesn't really matter exactly what size it is, but just a cotton towel. This is also going to have to be sterilized, but we'll figure out how to do that in a sec. And then I also have on here, it's a good idea to have a thermometer. You can get away with not using one of these, but this is a infrared thermometer. It's going to measure surface temperature, but it's really convenient, especially for something that you're trying not to contaminate by touching. So highly recommend one of these, but you can absolutely use just a regular probe thermometer as well. And the other thing I have on here, I have it listed as optional, but I find it really super useful because we're going to do some dispersed spores today. In here, I actually have a little silica gel packet just to, make sure that there's not any excess moisture in there. I also keep these in the freezer, but, just so it keeps as long as possible, because I tend to keep these for 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years at a time, and they still work for me. Okay. So now that all that stuff is out of the way, we have about 15 minutes before the rice is done. So we're actually going to disperse these spores. Now, something to keep in mind is that if you're buying spores, especially small sizes like this, pay close attention to what the spore producer says in terms of how much substrate this will inoculate. Okay, so this one says each packet will inoculate approximately 5 pounds of koji. That's roughly 2 kilograms, a little bit more than that. So that means that technically this should only be used for 2 of my standard 1 kilogram batches. The net weight of this is 5 grams. I prefer to use, if I go back to my recipe card here, I prefer to use 10 grams of dispersed spores. That is roughly 1 tablespoon, which I forgot to get out. So that's roughly 1 tablespoon, so I don't really have to measure it every single time, right? But you know, I can just scoop it out and put it in either the fine mesh sieve, a smaller one preferably. This isn't really super fine, but we're going to need this to spread the spores on the rice. I just bought one of these because it's super convenient, but you can use, I have used other things like one of these, for instance. This is like a soup skimmer, so it's really super fine, and it's actually kind of annoying how fine it is because it takes quite a while. But yeah, something in between works pretty well. And I'm sorry, I keep showing you stuff with the tiny little. It was this. I was showing you this. I'm sorry. My bad. The soup skimmer. Okay, so let's do this. Let's come on over here. By the way, you know, of course, if there are any questions as we're going along, please feel free to leave a comment. And if it's an interesting, if it's any question at all, honestly, it doesn't have to be interesting. You can ask whatever. This is very much how to get started from scratch, hopefully. I'm itching to use my my little comment feature thing. So, all right. So you can absolutely do this in the microwave. I'm not going to use the microwave because every time I do that, the Wi-Fi on my laptop goes out, and I kind of need that right now. So I am going to do it on the stovetop. Let's move that down and grab my scale. Okay, so again, we've got 5 grams here, and this is for approximately 2 kilograms. So I actually want 20 grams roughly total. So that means that I just need 15 grams more than that. By the way, if you're not getting that exact thing, or if you're buying from a producer that's giving you pure spores, only spores, not dispersed in rice flour like this is, it's good to shoot for roughly 0.1 to 0.2 grams of spores per dose for a kilogram of rice. So, you know, do that math. We're just going to be doing this super simply. I just need roughly 15 grams. And I'm going to put it in my pan. And just, that's not the right one. Turn that on to medium heat. And really, we just need to get this like above 160 degrees Fahrenheit or so. We're just trying to sterilize the rice to make sure there's no yeasts, lactobacillus, other things in there that can start chowing down. We only want a place for the spores to kind of be dispersed inside so that we can put it on the rice without any interference whatsoever. It only takes a couple minutes for that to heat up. We're already at 100 degrees, so let that go for a moment. Hey, Daniel's here. How's it going? Yeah, let me know if anybody has any questions so far. So, while that's going, why don't we have a look at what I was up to this morning, shall we? Back to the big screen. Okay, so yeah, speaking of equipment in the incubator, I set that up this morning. So let's take a look. Roughly 9 a.m. It didn't have to be that early, but I just needed to remember to set it up. I like to set it up early and get it to temperature, and so that I can check on it later in the day to make sure it's holding that temperature. So here we go. I'm using an Inkbird temperature controller, and that's a little aquarium bubbler. We'll look at some other options. That's just what I am using currently, and it's pretty darn cheap. I don't remember how much the Inkbird cost. Maybe that was the most expensive thing. It might have been between 30 and 60 bucks, depending on if you can find it on sale. And then the pause that. And then the bubbler itself was probably 15 bucks. And then in there we have an aquarium heater. That's pretty much the smallest one you can find. I think it's 25 watt for like 5 gallons. We're not even putting 5 gallons of water in there. So yeah, you don't need much. And then I've got some mason jars in there. You know, I'm sanitizing it just because that's easier for me. Again, soap and water works just fine, but I kind of think about Koji like beer, where we're using a single strain of yeast, right? And you don't want anything else in there. This is kind of similar. We want a single strain of that mold. So my incubation chamber is obviously with the aquarium heater there. It's a water bath chamber, more or less. This is described in Koji Alchemy, and let me pause that. Let me check this to make sure it's not overheating. Okay, that's done. Sorry. So the rice is plenty hot, so I'm just going to let that cool now. This is where that thermometer comes in handy. So, okay, so you absolutely don't have to use an aquarium heater. We'll take a look at those when we go down there. But also, I'm using these mason jars, but I didn't used to. I actually used to just float this directly in the water, and that worked just fine with a previous setup that I used. So whatever you got, even if you know, I'm showing there that it's like maybe a centimeter. You don't need a ton of space. The water can be pretty close. And then I'm gonna set that up. I'm setting mine to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. We're not really going to go into the various temperature ranges and different enzyme, production, temperature ranges and stuff like that. Maybe we'll go into that in another time, but 90 degrees is a decent kind of almost halfway point. It'll work for most situations. Sorry, I don't actually have that in. Maybe somebody can tell us what that is in Celsius, because I didn't have that written down. And then, so the bubbler actually serves a purpose, right? So first of all, it's keeping the water moving, right? So that the heat can be dispersed in the water. And also it's pumping oxygen in. So if you don't have something like an aquarium bubbler, you might have a little fan that you can kind of point towards your incubation chamber. Maybe there's a hole like mine has where it can at least kind of get some air circulation. You don't want a ton, you don't want to lose all the heat, but a little bit of air circulation is needed. My basement is cold. This is in my basement. So I cover it with this heavy blanket. And actually, I went back when I checked on it later. The temperature wasn't quite at 90 like it is roughly here, so I just stuck another blanket on top of it. I usually there's that plastic back there that I'm hanging up so that you can't see the mess behind there. I usually just stick the plastic on top, but whatever you need to do to kind of keep the chamber at temperature, right? Okay, so There I am again. Here we go. I don't know why I do that. All right, we got 5 minutes left. So, at about 4 p.m., I am washing and soaking the rice. So, here's my my particular, brand of rice that I enjoy. Kokuho Rose. It's a medium grain rice grown here in California. You can use a bunch of different kinds of rices, whatever you like, short grain, long grain. I'd stay away from sweet rice, aka glutinous rice. If you want to see how that works out, I have a logbook for that on the Crock of Time website under glutinous rice Koji or something like that. But it's not worth the hassle if you ask me. So, but washing the rice is worth the hassle. Otherwise, you're going to get. It's not that I'm not passing judgment on people that might not wash rice or whatever. Like, do what you do, however you prepare your rice. But for this for this application, growing Koji on steamed rice, I find that this is kind of crucial. So it's just getting rid of surface, starches and stuff like that, so that once we steam the rice, we have kind of individual separable grains, and that's going to give us kind of a maximum amount of surface area. Again, we're not going to go crazy and try to make sure we have every individual grain of rice. That's not what I'm about. Convenience, right? So we are just going to, make sure that we have something good enough, right? Okay, so now the rice has soaked for about 4 hours. Some guides that you read might tell you to soak them overnight. That works fine. I used to soak it overnight. I think that there was a presenter at KojiCon. I can't remember what they were making. But regardless, they talked about soaking the rice for like a half an hour, and that's it. So there's different water ratios that you try to that you can kind of delve into. I have a great link about both temperature and water content and all that sort of stuff that I will post somewhere, either in the description, in the Discord, but anyways, we're not going to worry about that too much. We're going to steam the rice. We're going to grow Koji on it. All right, 2 minutes left. So let's. So the rice is only soaked for about 4 hours here. I'm going to attempt to show you what it looks like, but I can't focus the camera. It's turned white. It doesn't quite break apart if you just squeeze a kernel. I forgot to show that part. If you soak it overnight, you can probably just kind of squeeze it in between your fingers and it'll just break apart. I think that's too long, but it'll still work, so don't sweat it if that just works out for you. I could pinch it apart with my fingernail really easily though. So here we go. Here's the rice napkin. That's just a nylon mesh that will mostly keep the rice from sticking. Ooh, hold on. I have a question finally. It works, yes. So Daniel is asking, do you do the powder crush test after soaking? I don't know how much of a delay there is here, so apologies if I already kind of answered that. But yeah, I'm not... I wasn't able to just completely crush it to powder just with my fingertips for the 4-hour soaking thing. Maybe it's better that way. I don't really know. This works for me. So maybe one day I'll try to do an experiment, or other people have probably done this, so maybe that's better. But regardless, mine did not completely crush to powder in my fingertips, if that was the question. Okay, so here we go. Just draining that rice. Doesn't have to be crazy drained. If you wanted to really drain it for like a half an hour and then weigh it to see if you got your soaking water ratio, go for it. That's not what I'm about. I'm just just making koji, you know. Oh, here we go. Meanwhile, this is going to go off, so hang on. Sorry, just turn that off. I'm going to move some of this stuff over while that's happening. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to actually fill the wok with water for steaming. So when I first started steaming, my first question was, well, how much water do I put in? Because anytime that anything tells you to steam something, it does not tell you how much water to use, and it can't really tell you how much water to use because it depends on a lot of things, right? It depends on, you know, the surface area, you know, how, you know, hard you're boiling it, you know, that sort of stuff. We were on a medium heat for an hour and we flipped this halfway through, and I find that that works great for 1 kilogram of this particular type of rice. So you might have to tweak that if you're using something like basmati or jasmine or something like that. But yeah, so I just filled it up to roughly, you know, maybe an inch lower than where that, you know, sits in there. You know what I mean? Excuse me. All right. So, finally, yeah, here we go. I'm showing it's on medium. It's boiling the way that I want it to. Here we go. Sorry. And I'm taking those. I've drilled those holes there so that, you know, the steam can kind of go up through the layers because I'm using 2 layers. And we just fold the cloth over so that it tucks inside, and that's it. I don't know if I can jump ahead here. Boop, 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 boop. Yep, there we go. I'm just showing that the water is not super hard boiling, just kind of a medium, and then that's it. So I put that in roughly 8:30. It's 9:30 now, so I gotta take that off. So you stay right here. While we bring the rice over. Okay. Sorry, I'm kind of doing this over here. Here we go. I'll just kind of set this in here. I am going to give you a little bit of a close-up here. How's that? That all right? We'll test the texture in a moment. Whoops! Sorry, it fell on your face. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to kind of pull this up out of here, move this aside, and flip it into there. Okay, let's get this. Okay, I have accidentally completely flipped it out on the counter before, so be careful about that. See how nice these rice napkins are? It just comes right out. Even when I did the glutinous rice, it came right out. No rice attached. Buy this stuff. It's worth it. Okay. Actually, so we're going to grab one of these and we're going to put our tea towel into the steamer to sterilize it. I'm just kind of Gonna put it in there like that. And back on the hot water. It only needs a couple minutes, really. So there is our tea towel sterilizing. Meanwhile, we've got this. Now, this stage is crucial. If we let it cool too much, it's gonna kind of harden and it's gonna lose a lot of moisture. But if we don't let it cool enough, then the spores are going to be deactivated by the heat. So what we're looking for is roughly, you don't have to be exact, but roughly below 100 degrees works for me usually. That's what I'm usually testing for. I am just spreading this rice out. This should only take a couple of minutes. So right now we're at almost 150 degrees, so we need to come down roughly 50 degrees. So while that's cooling a little bit, actually we're going to check our temperature ice age of this stuff. All right, so this is down below 100 degrees. So now we can put this in here. I did not have a, I should have had a container ready for this, but I didn't. But yeah, this, by the way, is Aspergillus sojae, not Aspergillus oryzae, which we're using today. The oryzae, not this. But I have this, and I haven't dispersed it yet. This is mainly, I guess, used more for shoyu, for soy sauce. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next, what kind of soy sauce. So this is probably going to be used for that. And I'm just going to mix that up in there. If you're using pure spores, don't do it this way. This is why I said I should have had a container prepared like this. So generally when I disperse spores, I'm going to put the spore in here first, right? Especially if this is pure spore, you just open it up, gently put it in there, and let it fall out. If you are concerned about spores, that's what this is good for, right? So just wear one of these if you're working with pure spores, just as a rule. And then once this is cool enough, dump the flour in there, close it up, and then give it a good shake. So that's how you should do your dispersed spores, especially if you are working with pure spores, but we're not. Okay, so let's check this again. Okay, we're about 120, 125. So halfway. I'm going to do this as a mix. Oh, and also our tea towel should be sterilized now. Whoops, I lost some rice. Careful, don't lose the rice. This is what high-sided hotel pan will help with. Hotel pan, is that the right word? Phrase, term. Okay. Thank you, Daniel, for answering the thing about the powder crush test. That is just a way to figure out how soaked your grain is. I'm not familiar of a mochi test, so you'll have to let me know. Okay, so let's go have a quick peek at our incubation setup. While that's still cooling, but we gotta be quick. Okay. Okay, there it is in all its glory. Excuse me while I try to set my laptop down next to it. So this is a little bit of kind of my personal history with Koji. So this here is actually my first attempt at an incubation chamber. I just decided that I wanted to try it, and I didn't want to wait for, you know, for an Inkbird. So there's an Arduino buried in there and some other components. And, you know, basically this was something that I could plug a heating element, and by the way, there's a humidity sensor too, but that was a little bit fragile, let's say. So I have not been using that. It is open source, by the way. I have that on my GitHub as a thermostat, but I didn't actually have the right kind of thermometer. I don't know. I can't find it. The probe itself was not the right kind of probe, so I'd still have to go back and sort that out. So after that, I realized that I had, or found one of these cheap, actually. I found one of these on sale. So this is an Instant Pot immersion circulator. So after I was, you know, messing around with that, I bought this because I also wanted to use it for other things. So if you already have an immersion circulator, maybe this is the way to go. You'll notice, if I move this out of the way, that I have a hole drilled in the top of that. That was for the immersion circulator to stick out. So when you're using an immersion circulator, you're probably not going to be able to plug it in to a temperature controller, because we're going to put that probe directly into the rice because we want to measure the rice temperature. But you know, this works in a pinch, and I used this for several years. So this is probably the cheapest and most convenient option, or at least it was for me. Right? You just need a chamber. You cut some holes to make it, you know, fit in there, so that this is basically at the bottom. Unfortunately, it does use more water than I liked. So you have to hit kind of a minimum amount of water, and you have to be above that because this is going to run for 3 days. So there will be evaporation. So that's, you know, that is what was going on there. Let's look inside briefly. So there we go. There's everything going. This uses approximately almost half the water that the immersion circulator required. Maybe slightly more than that. Maybe like 2/3 of the amount of water, but still it was significantly less water. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I moved to this stuff. Plus, you know, this is going to measure the actual temperature of the rice, because we don't want the rice itself to overheat. So that's why we're using that. So let's run back up here. Oh gosh, this is closed. Let me see if I can. So this hopefully should be the temperature that we're looking for. 100 degrees. Look at that. Let me mix it up first and make sure that there aren't any pockets. But generally, a little bit over 100 is still going to be just fine. But also, you know, so we don't want, you know, we don't want super clumpy rice. So this is kind of the texture we're looking for. I can run this through. The rice grains are nice, and you know, you can kind of pull them apart really easily. You can even take a little bit and kind of give it a munch or a smoosh. It should seem almost al dente, I guess, kind of like pasta. It should have a bit of a chew to it. And it's actually kind of nice texture-wise. I appreciate it, but okay, so here it is. I'm going to move fast here because we're at the temperature we want. We don't want this to cool off anymore. Oh my gosh, I forgot to take the tea towel out. Remember I said that the tea towel was probably done? that's nice and hot. Whew. All right, that'll cool off quickly. Okay, so like I said, this takes roughly 1 tablespoon of this dispersed spores in rice flour. And I'm going to stir it up. Okay, hopefully that angle's all right. All right, so we're going to do this in 2 passes. I'm going to sprinkle this on roughly half. Again, if you're worried about spores, you can use your use that. Okay, so we've done half of it. We're going to give this a good mix. Apologize if I'm missing any questions. Again, I should have kind of pointed out that I am not an expert by any means. I'm always learning. That's why I kind of have this website. That's kind of why I have this Discord to begin with, because I recognize that I don't think I ever will be an expert, and I'm not sure I want to be, honestly. I'm not really in this for business, per se. I have a career. I like doing this kind of stuff at home, and I think that other people should be doing it too if they want to. So that's what I'm all about. That's what Crock of Time is all about. Making stuff at home. Okay, and you can just dump the rest of it in there. All right, so that is all in, and we're thoroughly mixing. The aim is to attempt to kind of get that rice flour kind of in between, sticking to all those grains of rice, taking those spores with it, and it'll also act as some food for the mold to take hold on. You can absolutely use less less flour or whatever. You can absolutely use like that little packet that I got from Shared Cultures, 5 grams. If you've got a fine mesh sieve, you can very carefully, net it out onto the rice. But for me, 10 grams, 1 tablespoon works really great. Okay, so I'm trying to just evenly spread this out. You'll notice that I'm not bothering with any sort of, first of all, mounding or any kind of patterns. With this amount of rice, that stuff doesn't matter so much. Once you start making a lot of Koji rice, that starts to matter, but it doesn't right now, so I'm not bothering with it. And I can take this off now. Okay, so now I'm going to lay that tea towel on as quickly as possible. The tea towel is super important for this incubation setup. Do not skip it. I have skipped it before and I have severely regretted it. The reason that this is necessary is because there will be condensation and it will drip down onto the rice and it will interfere with the mold growth. So put down a tea towel, and if you'd like, you can also moisten it up so that we can kind of give that rice a head start in terms of the moisture level that it needs, because it needs more moisture and more humidity in the beginning than it does towards the end. So there we go. That's all we're doing. Now I need to somehow bring this downstairs with you. So let's go in 2 trips here. Let's bring this first, the laptop, down. Okay, and actually I'm going to leave this here, and I'm just going to bring the rice down. So enjoy the view for a moment. Okay, apologies for the delay. All right, this comes off. This goes in. Like so. Et voila. By the way, you can do more than one at once. This is kind of where the mason jars come in handy, so that there's something stable for this to sit on. And I use these big chopsticks to make another platform for another tray to sit on. So, something to consider. If you need to do 2 or even 3 kilograms at a time, this might barely fit another tray, but I've only done 2 at a time. It comes in handy when I'm doing a kilogram of dry soybeans, because after you soak and cook them, they're pretty much 2 or more than 2 kilograms. So it's good to be able to put those in two different pans. Okay, so there we go. Our rice is tucked away for nighttime and daytime and nighttime again. So let us put out the lights. We're good, hovering almost to 90. We'll get back up there. It's probably, I don't know this for certain, but it's probably a good thing that you know, in my cool basement, it almost struggles a little bit with keeping the temperature where I want it, because I'm doing this in the kind of lazy way. So let's go back. Let's go back upstairs. Say goodnight. Okay. So now that the hectic stuff is over, we can sit down and relax. Okay, here we go. And I really appreciate the questions that are being answered by Daniel in the chat. Thank you so much, because I've been running all over the place. Okay, let's have a seat. Hold on one sec. There we go. Let's see if there are any remaining questions before we end things today. Okay, so Surly Whirly's asking Daniel specifically, because he basically already answered this question, but they're using heat mat to start garden seeds. I've got 2 of those. Thinking that maybe they could use that to make koji. So yes, that is one of the heat methods that I started with, was the seed mats, because I already had them. For me, and for the size of the container that I had, and being in my basement, it did not... I guess my battery's running out. Oh, it's still there. Now let's see if I can... Nope. One more time. There we go. Okay, so yeah, so the seed mats, if you have a smaller, look, here's a really simple setup that you could try, but I can't endorse it personally because I haven't done it this way, because I've been doing it with the water bath method and having a lot of luck with it. You could just have a heavy blanket or towel. So have your, lay that down, put your tray with the rice, inoculated rice, in there, cover that tray with plastic wrap. This is kind of similar to how Jeremy is doing it at larder because he's doing it in dehydrator, and dehydrator is dry heat, right? He's doing it in a dehydrator and allowing the moisture of the rice itself to provide all of the humidity. And he pokes like 4 little holes, one in each corner, and puts it in the dehydrator, and it works beautifully for him. He's got the method down pat. He doesn't have to do it. His employees can do that because everything is structured. So if you do that, then cover it with this heavy towel or thing, and put that seed mat right under the tray. But you do need a temperature probe to keep an eye on the rice. So put directly into the middle of the bed of rice, and then hook that seed mat up to the temperature probe like an ink bird, and that could probably work. But I haven't tried it that way. Another thing to consider with that method is that when Jeremy makes rice, he's making a much larger batch, maybe 2 kilograms. I don't know exactly what he does in terms of the trays that he makes, but he is not steaming his rice. He does it in the oven. So he puts rice in this tray in the oven. He has a method worked out for that, and he does say that it does get clumpy on the bottom, but it doesn't bother him, and he's able to then use that excess water humidity to kind of almost seal itself up, and it thrives on that humidity in the beginning of the process. So maybe that would work out. Definitely try it. I would love to hear if I'm sure that there are other people that are using a really similar method like that to grow koji. Let's see here. Daniel is saying before this, he said that the koji will release water. So on a small scale, humidity is a small concern that can be handled with a damp kitchen towel and enclosure. So I'm assuming he's putting a paper towel, kitchen towel, or even a cloth towel or something over top of the rice to kind of deal with excess humidity or moisture potentially. And then he says that his produces plenty of condensation without any additional water, like I have in the whole thing is enclosed with with water underneath it, except what came in the rice. So so basically he's doing it similar to that, where the heat is under the pan. There we go. Feel free to clarify if I misread any of that. So I went over kind of the different incubation methods. I've also tried like an incandescent light bulb. That didn't work great either, but these would probably work a lot better if I wasn't doing them in a 55 to 60 degree basement. So you might have more luck if you do it ground level in your home that's heated, or even if you have an upstairs and it's even warmer, it'd be even easier. Okay, so now that the rice is in the incubator, what is next? So again, I am all for convenience in this case, right? I'm going for something that I could potentially do even if I was going to work and not working from home. What I am doing is I am checking up on it every 12 hours, and I'm letting it go for only 36. I know it's talked about a lot, during KojiCon and the our Koji Discord and all that sort of stuff, that there are times and reasons to let Koji go longer to 48 hours or, roughly thereabouts. Every time that I've tried to let it go past 36 hours, it sporulates for me. So I know that it needs to go to 36 hours and it's done on the money every time. So that means that when I start the process, when I, put the spores on the rice and put it in the incubation chamber. So for us today, that was, it's roughly, 10 p.m. So 12 hours later, 10 a.m. tomorrow, I will check up on it, make sure that it's holding its temperature. It held it pretty much all day, so I'm not too worried about that. If it's overheating already, then I'm definitely going to take a blanket off, but it'll probably be fine. Where you start to see, or at least where I start to see the heat spiking is around 24 hours. So that's 10 p.m. tomorrow. I will make sure to record when I'm checking up on it, by the way. So at that point, it will probably be slightly above the temperature I want it to be at, which isn't a bad thing, right? So we've got it set at 90. It could go up to 95 or a little over, and that starts to get us into a slightly different range for slightly different enzymes, but that's fine. I'm not looking for a specific enzymatic load here. I'm just doing a general purpose Koji. And I believe, oh gosh, I really hope that I don't get this wrong, but off the top of my head, I believe that if you push for the higher temperatures, you get increased amylase production, which will, convert starches to sugars. And below that, you have increased protease production. So what, breaks up proteins into amino acids and that sort of thing. So anyways, I'm going to try to keep it relatively around 90-ish. So I'll probably take off part of the blanket, we'll see, and then finally at 36 hours, usually I see the temperature drop at that point, and it'll be done. So we will be checking that out on Saturday at 10 a.m. So you can actually join me for the big reveal if you'd like, and we can see how it did, and we can talk about what to do from there, right? So I've already shown this, which I should not have kept, but I usually keep this in the freezer, so I need to put this back in there. Excuse me. But we'll talk about, what I do from there, how I store it, what I use it for. So there we go. Here is another question. Do you check for the Koji's penetration into the rice? I cannot get good penetration, and I wonder what the secret is. So this is a more advanced topic that I'm not bothering with when I do my Koji rice. Like I said, I'm going to check on it every 12 hours, but I'm not going to touch it. I am not going in there and stirring it or anything like that. I'm just leaving it be and just making sure that I keep the temperature where it needs to be. For a single kilogram batch, that's enough, I find, right? And for what I have used it for at home, it's enough. Misos, sakes, you name it. I've been experimenting with it and I'm enjoying it, right? So during KojiCon, we saw presentations about, really going in depth with, making Koji at a commercial level. And there's like different, what's the word in Japanese? Is like haze, I think. I always want to read it as haze. Maybe it is haze. I don't know. But there are different levels of, growth and penetration into the rice and different words for all of those things. I don't know them offhand. And ideally, right, for a super ideal Koji rice, you want that penetration of the mycelium into the grain of rice. I honestly don't even know how to check for that. I mean, I can, cut a grain of rice in half and kind of take a look at it, but I don't have the practiced eyes that know what that's supposed to look like. And I'm not shooting for anything quite that intense at home. So if you came here for super advanced koji making, that's not quite what this is, unfortunately. But maybe someday I'll get really deep into it. For now, I'm hoping that this is enough to just get people started growing decent koji rice at home. I've seen a lot of people struggle with, rice that was too wet, that, sporulated really early. So I just wanted to kind of record, get the whole process of how I do it on tape, so to speak, so that there is something that I can point people to see, what is it that I'm doing that makes what I need consistent. So anyways, I think that's going to be all for us today. We've gone just over an hour, which is what I was looking for. We'll do pretty much the same thing on Saturday and maybe make a couple of things. I don't know. We'll have some fresh rice and a whole bunch of already packaged and frozen stuff to do something with that I've been sitting on. So maybe it's time. So anyways, thank you all for hanging out with me. Before I go, yeah, some guy says, I'm not even sure how to check either. Mine seems to work anyway, so I try not to worry about it. Yeah, mine will definitely be a full-on just cake, right? Since we're not touching or anything, we're not messing with the mycelium development, anything like that. So we'll just get, tempeh style koji rice, and that works just great for me. So, but anyways, yeah, we'll see you guys, hopefully on Saturday. If not, in the Discord. Let me do the thing again. I am Corey Hugert, proprietor of Crock of Time. There's the website link. Hopefully, there we go. And the Discord link is just /Discord on that. So come hang out with us and let's figure out this koji stuff together. I hope that seeing how I'm doing it anyways helps somebody. There's plenty of other ways to do it. It's just what works for me. So thanks, and we'll see you all on Saturday. Let's...